Hi, my name is Dick Murgon with the Public Safety Broadband Technology Association. I'm one of the principals at the association. Welcome to our weekly roundup. With us today, we have Martha Ellis, who's our executive director, and Carl Wellness, who's our deputy ED. And I'm going to hand it off to Martha here to talk about this week's topics. Martha?
Great. Thank you, Dick. Good morning. My name is Martha Ellis. As Dick said, I'm the executive director of the Public Safety Broadband Technology Association. Our primary focus is to advocate for end users of FirstNet. And for a while there, we were out on the road doing local forums. But of course, with COVID, we've shifted our attention to getting you information through a webinar series that we're doing through our association. So for this series, we've partnered with FirstNet AT&T specifically to bring their application catalog to life. We understand that there's a lot going on right now with FirstNet, everything from this very rigorous and robust build out of the core to a plethora of applications that are becoming available to administrators to deploy within their ranks. And sometimes it's difficult to keep your head around everything that's being put out there and being able to vet it to determine whether or not it's going to actually solve your problem. So the lean-in series that we're doing with FirstNet is an effort to bring these applications to life. We bring the app developers on, they demo their products, they give you live demonstrations so you can see how they work. They talk about other agencies that have used them and applied them. And just an effort to give you a little bit more insight into what is available to you through the FirstNet app catalog to be utilized over the FirstNet network. And the last 2 weeks, yesterday and the week prior, we were focusing on going back to school. We have a litany of things that challenge us with feeling safe and secure about our children going back to school normally, but now, of course, it's all been compounded with COVID. So some of the things that we've been focusing on is how do we make sure that our students are safe? How do we make sure we know where they are and who they're coming in contact with? Are they in school? Have they made it to school? And those sorts of things. So, Carl, I'm gonna turn to you a little bit here. And first of all, I'm gonna ask you for your general impression of our back to school series and the applications that were showcased during that.
Well, good morning, Martha, and thank you. I think that they were spot on, and for everybody on the broadcast, by trade and training, I've been in law enforcement my whole life. So I think public safety is our number one job in police work and in law enforcement. And so I think that the apps that were featured this week, which were Rapid Deploy, which were On Guard, and Rumble Up, all of them assist us in doing our job just a little bit better. And I think one of the things that we can do in police work today is use and leverage technology to our advantage. And that's part of the FirstNet ecosystem. You know, FirstNet really is here to revolutionize the way we communicate with each other, especially in law enforcement. It was built just for law enforcement. It's a nationwide network just for public safety. And so the better we can communicate, the better off we are.
And I think the other thing I should point out here for our audience is Carl's just not from law enforcement. Carl is a retired police chief. So he understands the importance to the community. He's worked with school leaders, elected officials. So you really talk from a position of experience and understanding the needs for the community, right?
That's correct. Thanks, Dick.
Well, and also those critical decisions that those leaders need to make, right? Nobody knows what it's like to be in that driver's seat until you're in it. And so there's a lot of opportunities for opining on what should or shouldn't be done. But really, Carl's experience, having sat.
So I think Martha was talking about some of the some of the lessons learned in law enforcement and probably how we could do better to engage with our community. I think especially now is a time where police chiefs need to engage with their community a little bit more. And there's Martha back. And we not only do we have the pandemic, but we have homelessness, we have mental health issues, we have addiction issues, and really rather than can't do, I think we need to be in a position to say, how can we do it, and how can we make it better for the citizens that we're sworn to serve? And part of that, at the very bottom line, is that safety. And I say it in the forums, I say it in our webinars, but that's really our job one. But I think the public safety and the apps that FirstNet brings to bear really help us in that job. And so that's all part of the great FirstNet ecosystem that we're here to talk about. But this week's, when you look at On Guard and all the different kinds of things that they can do to provide safety for not only the school officials, but for the parents, because with that particular app, the parents can kind of track and know where their children are, and it brings them a sense of comfort when they send their kids to school.
Yeah, and Martha, as you were saying before you froze.
Oh, I don't know when I froze, so I apologize.
So that whole series again just kind of froze. So why don't you do that again for us?
Okay, well, I was speaking to Carl's experience as a chief administrator. Nobody knows what it's like to have to make those decisions and be in that seat until you've been in that seat. And so one of the things that we're really trying to do, and to Carl's point of how do we become better at what we do? Do we need more boots on the ground, or do we need to really leverage the technology that's being purpose-built for the first responder? And I would have to say it's the latter. And Carl made that point as well. And to be able to put these things in the hands of the leadership and give them that opportunity to vet them prior to making these decisions, I think that's the whole gist of why we're doing this webinar series. So, Carl, you mentioned leveraging these things to take grab that opportunity to connect closer with these citizens and administrators and whoever else we might need to deal with on the front end of mitigating hazards. And, in my mind's eye, you've got mitigating a hazard, but then eventually, inevitably, a hazard or an event does take place, and then we have response and recovery. So in the mitigation phase, talk a little bit about the applications that we saw yesterday and how you see these as not only being tools to do our job better, but maybe as tools to integrate and knit to us a little bit more closely with the citizens that we serve.
Well, there's a couple ways we can look at that. And so I think when you look at two ways that you can look at it, and I like the way you said mitigate, because police so often we're responding to things. We're responding to things after they occur, and so once you're in that position, you can't be as proactive. And again, I go back to what I said about how do we keep people safe? How do we keep the public safe? And because you don't want to respond to an incident. And on our best day around the country, there's 18,000 police departments around the country, but still on our best day, average time between the time you call 911 and by the time you see a vehicle there, a police officer there, that's 8 to 12 minutes. And it depends on which study you read, but it's an average of 8 to 12 minutes. Well, yourself, if you're timing it for 8 minutes, that's a long time to wait for help. So we don't want to do that. So I think mitigation and trying to be proactive on the front end, that's the way to go. So you look at the three applications that we talked about yesterday. On Guard. So that has the ability to connect with school and school officials and law enforcement. So already you're having that interoperability. And the other thing it does, it allows the parents to have comfort when they know their children, leave their house, that they'll come back safe. You look at Rapid Deploy, that works with the 911 and the public safety PSAPs around the country. Well, that reduces the emergency response time. That gives the officers and dispatch and fire a little bit more information, mapping a little bit quicker, just so that we could maybe shave off 30 seconds. And again, 30 seconds may not sound like a lot to this audience, but it's huge if you're waiting for an emergency response. And then the ability to text one another, just say, hey, are you okay? And those things, that simple thing, are you okay, yes or no, with a text, will rumble up communication, helps that. And we can also integrate that into the public safety. So again, you can see just in this week when we're talking about different things, those are three applications, three pieces of technology that can work right with police, right with fire, and it engages us with our community. And those are the things that I talk about are can do rather than can't do when we look at public safety.
And today, obviously in today's dialogue, it's all about, what should the police and law enforcement be doing or not doing? And there seems to be a feeling amongst some that the police might be doing too much and getting in day-to-day lives. Well, it seems to me, police didn't ask for some of those jobs. It got pushed on them. They were there. They volunteered to do it. But if we want to have the police less involved in our life and only there when we absolutely need them, products like this allow you to manage your family and work with your neighborhood and your schools by being able to understand where your children are, to be able to communicate with other parents in the school about issues that are going on. You can resolve issues much quicker within your personal community without having to involve law enforcement, but you're getting so much information there and so much help from that technology. If you have to have law enforcement, it allows them to respond more quickly with more information and be much more focused. Don't you think that's a fair assessment?
I do.
I totally. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, I was going to say I do. And to even build upon that, I think as we use this word, and I don't like the word, but I'm going to use it anyway, we reimagine policing. I think we need to be a more collaborative approach. And you're right. A lot of times there was no one else for the community to look to for homelessness. So who do they look to? They look for the police. When there's a mental health issue at 3 o'clock in the morning, who do they look to? Well, they look to the police, and we come. Who do we look for addiction? And so maybe it is time that we look at different responses and different approaches to those things, but we need to be in a more collaborative approach. And to do that, I think we have to use, just like you said, Dick, the different technology that's available to us and embrace that technology, because that's what good policing is about. Not only is it good policing, but it's good public safety as we engage our police and we engage our fire. And we work as an ecosystem, our own ecosystem of public safety, as we work within the ecosystem of FirstNet, which is really all about interoperability and communication. And the more that we communicate, the better we can protect our citizens.
Well, and what I'm hearing you both say is, to me, it's an empowerment of the citizens as well, right? So putting tools in their hands, so not only is our situational awareness enhanced, but so is theirs, right? So there's opportunities for them to mitigate hazards and be aware of what's going on with their family members that may keep us from having to even respond, right? Mitigate these hazards before they even warrant a response. So I agree. I think these tools are great opportunities for us to engage the community in ways before bad things happen, to look for solutions together, and plan for how that response and recovery could look in the cases that we can't mitigate. So
perfect. And you take this tool that we have today, our smartphone, and a lot of the officers have those assigned to them in today's world. And so you just take these 3 different applications that they have, and we can engage with the community. So to your point, Martha, what we can do is that's one step where the community can feel like they've been empowered, because now and they can communicate with the police. And the police, on the other hand, they're supposed to be part of the community. So we put them in a district, we put them in an area, and their job is to get to know that area. And how better can they do that without direct communication with the citizens that they serve? Great point.
Right. Well, and it's an access thing too, as well, right? I mean, most of the time citizens only see law enforcement when they're engaging with them in a way that is maybe not as comfortable for them as they'd like. So to feel like there's this collaboration to secure a community, it's much more compelling for that citizenry to feel like there's accessibility to law enforcement above and beyond just dialing 911. So it's a relationship thing, right? Through the relationship building, and you build trust, and expectations can be fostered and understood. And honestly, in this day and age, with the technology that's developing at a breakneck pace, you're right, Carl. That little device in our hands is going to revolutionize so many aspects of how we keep our community safe and engage our citizenry.
Absolutely.
Dick, did you have anything to add?
Nope, I do not. So where are we on your list of topics?
Okay, so sure. So, well, I'd really like to kind of talk a little bit about FirstNet in general. So in public safety, I want to talk about the criticality of having this network available to us in the first place. And let me just give you a brief little synopsis of my thoughts on technology prior to FirstNet and after. For years and years, I was in the fire service, and I would go to these large conferences, and it was always wonderful to see all of the innovation that was taking place on the vendor floors, right? But what's the limiting factor, right? What is the critical link to making sure that these things are actually going to be useful in the throes of response? Clearly, it's the network that everything is transferred across. So you can have all that technology, but if the missing link goes down, if the critical link, the linchpin, as I like to call it, goes down, you're kind of dead in the water, and you might even just be thinking about going back to pen and paper. But with the advent of FirstNet, it just completely turns that paradigm upside down. And to me, it has allowed this. I like to say it's taken the bit out of innovation's mouth, where they can just go crazy on building this stuff with such a high degree of confidence. And the first responders can deploy these things with an exponentially greater sense of confidence that not only is this application going to solve this problem that they've had, but when they turn to that application and the commercial networks are completely bogged down with everybody trying to communicate with their loved ones and so on, they're going to have this HOV lane to be able to leverage this technology reliably. And to me, that is the most critical part of all of this. So, I'd like to talk to both of you about your perspective on FirstNet and how it is helping to foster not only the innovation, but the confidence that leadership can have in integrating these things into their emergency response plans.
Well, and yeah, to that point, Martha, part of what FirstNet brings is the whole issue of interoperability. All that data we're talking about and school data, school safety isn't worth much if you can't share it with the people who need to share it with. And what we learned for, 75 years of technology and public safety is the vendor community is not our friend as a general rule. They want to sell public safety technology that is proprietary and locks them into their system. I mean, you've got radio networks today that sit in cities side by side that can't talk to each other because a vendor intentionally knew that when they sold that system, they couldn't talk because they could sell another widget to make it talk when they could have just sold exactly the same thing in the first place.
Well, and then you build in the obsolescence, right? Where they're like, okay, now I've got you, and guess what? Every 18 months, we're going to make sure that our product becomes obsolete, so that you have to dig into your coffers to renew and stay on top of the latest and greatest. And there's no integration between the generations of the technology evolving, and it's extremely frustrating, and it's extreme drain on the coffers of these first responders. So, talk a little bit about the economics of FirstNet.
Well, but see, okay, so that's why we built FirstNet. I mean, what we realized when we came together is, those representing public safety nationwide, every discipline, same room, came together and said, the only way to solve this is one network that we all can communicate on. And that's where we came up with the idea that became FirstNet. The synergy of the volume of all public safety coming together reduces the price, and the price has come down for first responder. The price of applications and tools have come down, and subsequently, we are building that network. Now, we still have people like Verizon out there that, are trying to disrupt that because they just care about the revenue for their corporate shareholders. They have just now created this board of paid for, highly paid for executives to advise them on public safety. Well, here they're getting advice from public safety from paid experts to maybe do what's right for public safety. Whereas the difference being is FirstNet is public safety, where it has driven requirements that AT&T must follow. So this isn't AT&T going, oh, tell me what you want, and maybe I'll do it. This is AT&T going, you have mandated that I have these requirements to fulfill to operate your network, FirstNet, for you. So we're doing it. Where here you have Verizon going, well, tell us what you think, and maybe we'll do it, and maybe we won't. What we want to do is disrupt this whole interoperability, we want to disrupt your ability to talk across it. Their corporate bottom dollar is more important to them than protecting public safety. And so
let me
we
ask
needed
you a quick
FirstNet
question
to solve those problems. And that's why we have First.
So let me ask you a question then, because I think this is super important to bring up right now. Talk about the reinvestment component of FirstNet.
Sure. So again, what people don't realize is that yes, AT&T is sending you a bill as a first responder because the FirstNet Authority as a government entity doesn't have the ability to bill you. And we don't necessarily want them to because let's face it, the federal government, state government sometimes don't really do things that well. And so part of the contract is they send the bill, you pay your money. Well, that money, as much as yes, AT&T gets a percentage of that to operate the network because they have to, but it's going to the FirstNet Authority. And they just here launched this year their reinvestment discussions with public safety because again, FirstNet, the FirstNet Authority is now taking your money you have paid in your bills, going to AT&T and says, you got to make the network better, and we're going to pay you to because FirstNet is the public safety network, and we're going to invest it into 5G, new applications, new towers, new stuff. So again, AT&T is being driven by public safety. Verizon is being advised by highly paid executives from a bunch of East Coast departments to tell them what they think, which has nothing to do with reality.
Let me build on what Dick said just a little bit.
That's the way it is.
I have another question for you, Dick, regarding
but wait. I think what Dick is hitting on is a key thing. Not only do you have to have capacity, which we're going to talk about, and you have to have reliability because we all know we have to have that. We talk a lot about that in FirstNet. But let's go to kind of the key thing. What holds things together? And that's where I think FirstNet exceeds from all others, and that's honest and honorable. I think it's an honest and honorable organization, and it's built for public safety with public safety in mind. And you don't see that because, to what your point, Dig, is it's a corporate bottom line. Not so here. Everybody at FirstNet is honest and honorable, and I think that trust is what sets it apart above all that you can talk about.
Yeah.
Well, and another key point that I think is extremely salient is that at all tiers of FirstNet, within the FirstNet built with AT&T, within the FirstNet Network Authority at the federal level, everywhere in those organizations, at every tier practically, is a former first responder. We're not necessarily relying on just a cadre of, like you said, the advisory board executives. Yes, we have advisory boards. Clearly, the FirstNet Network Authority has an advisory board that's chock filled with public servants. But at the same time, they're filling the majority, I would venture to say, of their spots, the real critical decision-making spots. The ROG, for instance, the Response Operations Group. I mean, clearly that is a group of highly trained, highly experienced first responders to do the job that needs to be done. So it's first responders responding for first responders. It's just a it's so beyond where we've been.
I'm going to jump on that bandwagon for a moment here, Martha. So here you got Verizon using the commercial resources to help you if you need help when you need help, if you call for help, maybe, to AT&T is under the contract built exclusive resources for public safety that are built to public safety specs, available to public safety at no charge. And then they did one better. They hired public safety people to run it and build it. Fred Scalera out of the state of New Jersey, God bless him. People don't know about Fred. Fred was one of the first people who built a BTOP demo site to prove Band 14 worked for public safety. AT&T hired him, and he now runs that division that ensures that deployment, made up of many former public safety people to run that operation. It is public safety. Yep. It is public safety.
No,
and AT&T didn't have to do that, but they sat there and said, look, we care so much about public safety, we're hiring these experts to build it internal to make sure it works for public safety. TNT, when you look at the public safety people they've hired, they've got Mike Bostic out of LA. They got Fred Scalera out of New Jersey. They got Kelly out of Texas. They got Ryan out of Florida. People from all over the country, different disciplines, state patrol, fire, sheriff's office, PD. They get it.
They get it, and all of those are not only individuals and human individuals, but it builds into the ecosystem to bring it back down to where we started today, and that's engaging with our community, because we're able to do that. And like you said, Dick, not everything's like LAPD or NYPD, but each community is different, and that's what sets FirstNet apart, because it evens the table. You don't have to be LAPD to buy into FirstNet. You can be, small town USA. You can have a 3-person police department and have the same technology available to you as the big cities, and that's what sets it apart. That's why it's so special.
Right now, Martha, your weekly roundup here is now at 28 minutes and 41 seconds. So our 15 minutes.
I know, and I know I should have known better.
So what else is the good of the order here?
One of the other things that I do want to bring up, and it goes to the diversity across this country on how different agencies, not only the different types of problems that they have to confront, but how they approach those problems. And at during every single one of these webinars that I am doing with these groups, Steve Devine joins us. And one of the key things that I do like to ask him about is, we've got the rural and the urban environments, right? Especially in the school settings. In both of those settings, you are going to be aggregating and creating these high density populations, AKA your schools. And so what does it look like for these rural schools? Do they have access to FirstNet? Are they going to be able to leverage the same sort of situation? Because even in a rural school, the minute something bad happens, their system's going to be, the commercial systems are going to be taxed with the students. And so it goes to that. Look, we're not just attacking these big city problems. We are attacking all of the problems across this country and trying to make the network that is being built just for first responders and all of the teams that support them available in every nook and cranny of this country, because problems can happen in every nook and cranny. And I think from the commercial standpoint, so many of these rural communities have kind of felt like they've been left out in the rain when it comes to network coverage. And one of the collateral benefits that these citizens are going to start to realize is their network in general is just going to become more robust in these areas for day-to-day use, but most importantly, if something horrific happens. And tornadoes are not selective with where they rip through, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think, to your point, Dick, above and beyond who's advising who and where the advice is coming from, I think it's really important to focus on the priority that's been placed on a universal, across the country approach to providing this kind of coverage. So that's what I'll say as far as the theory and the philosophy behind getting this network out to everybody. It's just been critical and not selective. They're getting it to everybody. So anyway, yeah, you're right. The roundup went a little longer. It was not exciting for a minute there.
It was fun. It was a fun afternoon.
I so appreciate you guys, and I'm glad you took the time to come on with me today. And I hope to see you guys next Friday, because I think we should take a look at what's going on across the broadband network world, whether it's what the commercial networks are doing to compete with us versus what FirstNet has achieved. Week to week, it does change, and we will be doing another webinar on off of the FirstNet, the PSBTA.org. You can go on there to register for the webinar series. We run the FirstNet Lean In series every Thursday at 9 o'clock Pacific time. You can do the math on the times marching across the country, but I just want to encourage people to join us, because we're going to great lengths to get this information out in front of people. It's so critical that people know what's available to them, and then get an idea of what it looks like to deploy and utilize this incredible tool that's being purpose built for them. So
yeah, we've got some great stuff going each week.
Yeah.
Yep.
We do. So, all right, fabulous, gentlemen. Thank you again. I love the conversation, and we will talk to you later.
Thanks, Martha.